What's up, guys? It's your host, Steyn here, and welcome to my very first podcast. The goal of this podcast is to basically provide information on training, nutrition, supplementation, mindset, and a personal insight into, other areas of the whole journey, and my personal journey as well as a bodybuilder or powerlifter, fitness professional, mentor to other personal trainers, and, a coach to many. So the format of this podcast will basically be a different topic each week. Going to keep them nice and short if I can. And at some point, I probably will have an interview here or there. But that's not really the main purpose here. I'm not looking to seek education or information from experts in certain fields, but rather give you guys the information that I have and, the knowledge that I have based on many years of training, nutrition, bodybuilding, powerlifting, and give you my insights on certain topics so then you can go ahead and learn from me and also take on some actionable steps in the process. So for this very first episode, I wanted to talk about a topic which I believe is quite popular these days, and it is flexible dieting. Flexible dieting is something that I've been doing for quite a few years now, and I actually implemented it in a really weird way, and I'm going to let you guys know basically what it is, how I discovered it, why it is so life-changing in my opinion, who can benefit from it, and also how you can learn more about this style of eating. So essentially, to keep it simple, flexible dieting is a scientific approach to nutrition whereby we focus on your macronutrient intake on a day-to-day basis, that being your protein intake, your carbohydrate intake, and your fat intake as a primary focus. And by focusing on these numbers and hitting a certain amount of each one of these, we are by default controlling the amount of calories coming in, and we are also having a wider range of food selection and have the ability to kind of enjoy our diet a bit more and not be fixated on eating, 5 foods that work or clean eating diet or paleo or anything else that kind of restricts your options when it comes to food selection, and at the end of the day still puts you in that same focus, whether it is a calorie deficit for fat loss or a controlled surplus, for muscle building. Really, it all just comes down to consuming sufficient protein to build and maintain your lean mass, having sufficient carbohydrates for energy, but at the same time, manipulating that intake to really shift towards gaining weight or losing weight, and then obviously enough fat for hormone production, transport of nutrients, etc. So your protein, your carbohydrate, and your fat, they all serve a role in our body. And there's a lot of diets out there which will actually demonize carbohydrates. And then at one point it was like, no, carbs are not the enemy, it's fat, so have a no-fat diet. And people have been really confused over many, many years now, when it really just comes down to energy balance and controlling the variables which then cause you to overconsume calories and put on body fat. So by controlling your macronutrients, you are in essence controlling your energy balance and shifting it towards deficit or surplus or maintenance depending on your goal, and you're able to really enjoy life and eat whatever you like. So essentially we're looking at controlling and tracking your food intake, so weighing your food and understanding and knowing exactly how much protein, carbs, and fats are coming in on a daily basis. But then in addition to that, we also want to think about other things of nutrient value which are important and actually improve our health. And one of those things is fiber. So we also want to have enough fiber in our diet on a day-to-day basis. Fiber plays an important role in our health. So again, that is added to the macronutrient focus that we have to then consider not only your macros, but also your health as well. So when we think about fiber, we think about foods which actually contain high amounts of vitamins and minerals. So then we're actually expanding those macros over into micronutrient control as well. And no, you don't have to have broccoli with every meal. You don't have to have oats for breakfast every day, but you do have to consume sufficient fiber on a daily basis at a minimum requirement, to optimize your health and get in those vitamins and minerals which are often found in foods which contain high amounts of fiber. So to recap on that, essentially flexible dieting is eating whichever foods that you like, your personal preference, but managing, measuring, and tracking your food intake on a day-to-day basis to ensure that we hit a certain amount of protein, carbohydrates, fat, and fiber on a day-to-day basis. Now, how I discovered flexible dieting is actually quite interesting because my brother, who is not interested in health and fitness to a large degree at all, he actually came to me one day and told me he was losing weight by tracking his food intake using an app called MyFitnessPal, and he was going out and eating whatever he wanted, but as long as he stuck to his calorie target, he was all good. So he showed me this app, and he was eating, at restaurants and fast food and eating at home as well and just having whatever he wanted, and the weight was coming off because he was in a calorie deficit. And I looked at this app with interest but also intrigue and doubt because I was of the mindset that you have to eat certain foods to get the results that we essentially were looking for, which is typically fat loss and muscle building, or even maintaining your muscle. But I did look into the app and I played around with it, and I thought, wow, this is actually really cool. Now, where he went wrong is he focused on calories only, not protein, carbohydrates, fat, and fiber, but literally just controlling calories. And his diet would have been quite low in protein and quite low in fiber as well by default, just because he was eating out a lot. So I looked at this app and I started playing with it, and I thought, I'm going to put in my personal diet that I currently have, a typical bodybuilding traditional diet, and put it into this app and, see if this works and see if it shows me the macros that I feel like I was consuming, because I was tracking my food intake and stuff and creating meal plans, but it was really just based around a small amount of foods. And, your typical bodybuilding clean foods, as they would call it. So I did that, and I did a little bit of investigating, and I actually, obviously went on Google and YouTube and a few different places, and I found that there was actually quite a few bodybuilders already taking this method on board and eating other foods, ice cream, Pop-Tarts, and all different crazy things that you wouldn't typically have unless you were, dirty bulking, as we called it back then. And it was very intriguing. So I did a bunch of homework, and I started watching more and more YouTube videos, watching other people, take this, towards their contest prep with bodybuilding and really take on this approach to dieting. So I thought I would give it a go as well. So because I was new to it, I was 100% super, focused on doing it correctly, measuring every food to the gram, and really learning about the process, in the process, and tracking everything as best I could. And even though I did that, I still screwed up here and there. There was a lot of food on MyFitnessPal which was incorrect nutrient data, and that kind of screwed with me a little bit. And it was definitely a learning process, and it still is a learning process for people who are new to the game. But one thing is for sure, is flexible dieting always works because it is a scientific approach to nutrition when we think about energy balance, macronutrients for certain specific goals and outcomes, and fiber for good health. So controlling that and, managing that towards your specific goals, it works every time. It just comes down to doing it accurately and consistently doing it accurately as well. So that's kind of how I discovered flexible dieting. It was actually interesting. It was through my brother, but then it was also through, the internet and other people doing it. And this would have been back in 2011, where I learned more about it, and then in 2012 I started to implement it. Now, when I told people that I was going to eat Nutella and still get shredded, they laughed at me and they told me that was impossible. I even had some people tell me that the type of fat in Nutella would actually cause me to look worse than other fats that I would consume, and essentially there's no way in hell that I could get lean, bodybuilding lean, shredded or shredded glutes while I was eating Nutella. So what did I do? I did exactly that. I tracked my macros, I ate in a calorie deficit, I ate Nutella consistently and other foods that I thought were fun, and I lost body fat, maintained lean mass, and I got those shredded glutes. And I feel like that really played a big role in other people realizing that, hey, this is actually something that works. And there were a lot of naysayers who really thought that it was just my genetics which controlled how I looked. But we all know that nutrition is key, and regardless of your genetics, if you eat a horrible diet, there is going to be a visual representation of that, or there's going to be a health representation of that, And I did my blood test and everything was great. Everything was healthy. I actually went to the doctor and he told me that my cholesterol levels were lower than expected, or like below, in the very, very low range of what is healthy, and that I should go out and eat a bunch of fast food, which obviously was a ridiculous idea and not something that I pursued. And, I learned more about nutrition through this. I learned about the nutrient content of many different foods, and I learned that I could actually enjoy a lifestyle that I don't have to be restricted. I don't have to be at a restaurant and order a chicken and broccoli, or I don't have to sit there and have nothing. I can actually start to learn more about food and, have a more balanced and enjoyable lifestyle in the process while still working towards my goals. So the reason why flexible dieting is life-changing to me and to many other people, and would be to yourself as well, is because it actually teaches you the nutrient content of foods, as I said, so you learn more about nutrition. So your nutrition knowledge goes up. And in almost every case of people learning flexible dieting or just following the protocols that I provide to my clients, they start to actually have a strong interest in nutrition and learning more about nutrition, whether it's asking me where they can, do a course on nutrition, or how can they become qualified in nutrition, or like they just want to learn more and more. And that typically happens as they start to trust the process more because the results are coming. And that's really cool. But the most life-changing thing about flexible dieting is the fact that you can wake up any day of the year, wherever you are, and you've got a 24-hour period to hit these targets. And you can do this with whatever foods you choose, at whichever time you choose, with any combination of foods that you choose. So flexible dieting, diving a little bit deeper into it, we don't really focus on eating every 3 hours. We don't really have any concern of mixing carbohydrates with fat in one meal. We have zero concern of eating carbohydrates at nighttime before we go to sleep, because we focus on those macros on a 24-hour period, and we know that if we stick to that day to day, we are going to get the outcome that we want. And it all comes down to energy balance and also consuming the right nutrients for the right purpose, as I've already said. So being able to actually be social, being able to diet down by simply just eating the foods that you love and maybe reducing the portions progressively, you can actually continue to diet and get a great result. You can also go out, camping, or you can go to, on holiday. You can even go to a festival, which might last a day or two or three, and still stick to your goals. And these are examples that my clients implement, or of my clients where they've actually implemented flexible dieting whilst they're out on the road, whilst they're doing, things where food availability is quite limited, but they can still hit their targets by being prepared, using foods that are packaged if necessary, using protein powder if necessary, but still thinking about fruits and vegetables, and, essentially getting to their goal without stressing out about it. And to add to that, as a flexible dieter, it is so easy for you to go out and have a burger and have zero guilt about it. You're not going to go home and binge because you just completely just destroyed your diet and feel so bad about it, so you might as well just quit and eat everything. And that is the mentality that a lot of clean eaters would have, and I personally would have over many years, where I would be like so on the diet and so focused that as soon as I screwed up and ate like, a slice of pizza or a piece of cake or at a birthday party or, some chocolate or whatever, I would be like, well, I wrecked it, so I might as well just keep going and eat as much as I can, and then starve myself for the rest of the week. And that is such a common thing. It's actually frustrating. If people are still doing that in this day and age with the information on flexible dieting and understanding nutrition and, knowing that it works, then, that's just crazy. And, these types of people are definitely the ones that want to tune into this kind of topic and learn more about flexible dieting. So essentially, this approach is going to benefit physique competitors, powerlifters, so strength performance athletes, general population, everyday people. It's totally fine for you to have specific structure where you follow a certain meal plan and eat certain foods, and the foods are the same every day. There's no concern or issue with that for the most part. Like maybe if you're eating the same food long term too often and it's a low list of foods, you might be lacking certain vitamins and minerals, which is not ideal. But in most cases, if you decide to actually just eat the same foods, every 7 days or so and rotate different foods out because it's convenient for you, totally fine. Like, that's no issue at all. Flexible dieting doesn't demand you to eat fun foods or weird foods or, foods which are deemed, unhealthy or whatever. It literally just allows you to have whatever you want. And if you don't want to have chicken today and you'd rather have lean beef or egg whites or fish, that's totally fine. We just track it and we make sure it fits our macros for the day and we're good to go. So essentially everybody can benefit from flexible dieting. And the reasons that I mentioned in regards to learning about nutrition as number one point, that is really, really awesome and life-changing. So to learn more about flexible dieting, I have an ebook that you guys can get for free. And all you have to do is visit my website, www.denversteyn.com, and there'll be a pop-up straight away just saying, give me your name and your email, you'll get this free ebook. Now, this very, very short ebook will basically give you the basic understanding of flexible dieting and dive a little bit deeper in what protein, carbohydrates, and fat do, and calories and things like that, and also give you some equations on how you can actually start to track your macros and where you might start from a protein, carbohydrate, and fat consumption point, as well as calories if your focus is fat loss. And you can straight away start to implement this. Download MyFitnessPal or whichever food tracking app you decide to use. Some people use spreadsheets. I don't really recommend that, to be honest. But, you can get started instantly and it will cost you nothing. So go ahead and get that ebook. And if you do want to learn a little bit more in-depth information on nutrition, I do also have a short video course called Mastering Flexible Dieting, where I go through the different aspects of nutrition, which then ties everything in to how flexible dieting works. And, it also touches on misconceptions of nutrition and how things like carb cycling works and how you can fit alcohol into your diet and still, focus on your goals, and little tricks and tips so you can actually understand nutrition better, implement it into your life, and not feel like you've just, destroyed your hard work because you had a night out in town and drank more than you wanted to, or you went to your friend's birthday and decided to have some cake and it didn't fit your macros. Your life isn't over. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more about nutrition that most people don't understand, and there's a lot more to nutrition that we still don't understand. But what we do know is that flexible dieting is a great tool and great approach to nutrition for fat loss, for muscle building, for general health, and all things alike, which enable us to, really enjoy the process, not stress out about these simple things, and not get sucked into a system where we're forced to focus on, liquid nutrition or no carbohydrates after 6 p.m. or only eat these foods and never eat these foods, but more have a general understanding of how the body works, why things work, and how to make it work for us. So thanks for listening to my very first podcast. I want to keep these podcasts as short as I can, just simple, informative information. And if you got something out of this, that's great. Please leave me a 5-star review and check back for the next podcast. Speak to you guys then.